everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Briant Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal podcast. I'm your host, Briant Thomas. Thank you all for joining me and being a part of the journey, and thank you for all the love and support you guys continue to give me and the show. I really appreciate it. So many of you out there are recommending the show to others that may not have heard of it. I don't advertise this, so any of the growth I receive is largely thanks to a bunch of you. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And we've got an epic show lined up for you guys today. I am joined by Mr. David Masters, who is with me, and he is the creator and host of a podcast called The Spooky Action at a Distance with David Masters. And he's also part of the Disrupt the Drift with Briant Baptiste. He is a published author of over 20 books, and he's come here today to talk about Pay Attention to Your Intuition, his newest book, or a new book. And the book title is Pay Attention to Your Intuition, Precognition, Meaning, and Warnings in Dreams. And we're going to dive into his experiences. It's going to be an epic journey, so buckle up because we're going in. Hey, David, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Brent.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you and I have been talking for a while, and you're a fascinating person and you got a whole wealth of experience. My God, we could do shows just on what you've accomplished throughout your life. It's pretty amazing. But your journey started somewhere, and this is kind of my one canned question, so I hope you'll indulge me this, but where did this all start for you, this fascination and interest with the strange and wonderful?
Well, I can tell you that it's been with me ever since I was born. And, you know, I just recently found out that I was the first of 5 children, but there was one before me that never made it.
Oh, okay.
And there are some people who say that I'm a person that has 2 souls, that somehow I got endowed with more than just one.
Oh,
you know, one awareness. I think sometimes I find myself being a little bit overwhelmed by how aware I am of so many things.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've thought about, but I have no idea whether or not that's even a possibility. But yeah, it started when I was born. By the time I was 10 years old, I had started having intuitions. And I can give you a very solid example. One day I walked over to my friend's house, and I was about to go in, and I stopped outside the front of the house, and it was as if a portal opened up in the middle of my forehead. Oh. And I saw that there was conflict within that home, bad conflict. This is what I saw. And I stood outside of that house for a minute, and I thought, should I go knock on the door even? And something said to me, don't even go. Just go home. So I followed that. So that was, I believe, one of the awakenings of this intuitive capacity that I have, this ability to have a sense of things that's just beyond what I can see. You don't necessarily have to see something in order for it to be there, by the way.
Right.
You can have a sense of things. And so from the time I was that age, 10 years old, you know, I'd had many bad experiences in my life. Starting when I was 3 years old, I lost a finger in a bicycle accident. I had turned my bicycle upside down, so it was resting on the handlebars in the seat, and I was pedaling the bicycle, and somehow my finger got caught between the big gear and the chain, and it popped off.
Oh my
God. I was 3 years old at that time. So, you know, there are times when I think that maybe the forces of this universe sort of said, okay, you've got challenges in your life, so I say, because who knows who's involved in these things,
Right.
but we're going to give you a little bit of extra so that your disability doesn't prohibit your growth, which a lot of people have those problems. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm missing a finger on my left hand, on my guitar hand, my
Oh,
chord hand.
yeah.
So I wasn't meant to be a rock star, but I was meant to be something.
Yeah.
And I'm just exploring that every day of my life. So the 10-year-old mark is where it started for me. At least I remember that. By the time I was about 12 to 13 years old, a lot of really weird things started to happen because, I was very aware of the energy surrounding people. Not
Oh.
and sometimes you could see auras.
Hmm.
Sometimes I could see the either light or dark energy around people.
Oh, okay.
But I remember seeing a movie called Jason and the Argonauts. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, I love that movie.
It's a
Yes.
great movie.
Great movie.
So in that movie, there was a scene where he's off looking for the golden fleece, and they land on this island. And there's a poor man who has been stranded there by the gods, and these things called harpies, these bat-winged things, would come down and land and steal his food, and he just had barely enough to survive on, right?
Right.
I'm not 13 years old. I'm 12 and a half years old. I'm sleeping in my bed, and I wake up to the sound of these flapping wings. And I'm rubbing my eyes, looking out my window, big glass window, and there's this giant bat-winged creature, pretty much exactly like what is shown in this movie, The Jason and the Argonauts, and it scared the crap out of me. And so I grabbed my BB gun and I shot a hole in the window because I felt that it was coming in to get me.
Right.
My dad came into the room. He said, "What happened?" I explained it to him. I said, "There's this creature outside my window." And I was so scared I didn't know what to do. So I shot the window. And so my dad didn't get upset. He goes, "Okay, all right, all right, don't worry about it. You'll be okay." He reassured me. And so, being aware opens up, I believe, a dimensional potential to deal with things from an otherworldly perspective.
Sure.
And that was happening to me. I mean, in a big way. And me having this thing come after me, it was sort of a sign to me that something else was going on in my life, that
Right.
there was a growing awareness of things that were not necessarily seen but were there.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So a little while after that, really strange things started to happen to me. Let's put this in context. And I'm going to fast forward and backward between things that I can recall and connect these dots.
Okay.
I was on vacation. I want to say 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Santa Barbara, took my family there, went, having a nice time, walking down State Street toward the pier. It's a famous street, up and down State Street, beautiful shops, tourist paradise. I'm walking down State Street and you have to cross these railroad tracks. I look down the railroad tracks and I see this tiny little diminutive figure. Tiny, tiny, like way, 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 way down the railroad tracks. I see somebody, a shadow of something walking across the railroad tracks. I happened to be walking with my 4-year-old son at the time. And I had him on my right side, and I'm holding his hand. I'm trailing behind everybody else. There's probably about 10 people, my brother and my wife and his wife and the kids. And all of a sudden something says to me, an intuitive hit comes to me, and it says, move your boy over to your left hand. Okay, I move my boy over to my left hand. Exactly in that moment, a 3-foot tall, white-haired, bug-eyed man with sharp teeth shows up next to me,
Wow.
right on my right-hand side. And I look over and I go, "Wow, where did this guy come from?" I'm sure it was the diminutive figure that was walking down the railroad tracks. Tiny. And I look at him, he goes, "How you doing?"
Oh,
This is his
wow.
voice.
Oof.
I go, "I'm okay. How are you?" He says to me, "I've been in hell all day and I'm bored."
Oh, dear God.
And I looked over at my son, and my son was just like totally unaffected by it. He was like looking around, whatever. And he says, "And I can't wait to piss on your grave."
Oh,
And again, I looked over at my son, and as soon as I looked back over toward this little man, he was gone. Anybody want to say demon?
well, yeah. I was thinking imp too, but yeah. Like,
Manifestation of something
yeah.
shows up, picks me out of the crowd. I mean, this is a busy day. And so these are the kind of things that I've been experiencing pretty much my entire life. These manifestations of beings. And what I want to say about this is that there is a realm, a seen and an unseen realm. And I just recently heard one of the best explanations I've ever heard of this by a guy named Michael Cremo. He wrote a book called Forbidden Archaeology.
Okay.
Are you're not familiar with him?
I think I might have heard of him, but
Been following this guy for decades.
Uh-huh.
What he explained is this, is that we live in a multi-layered reality. As human beings, we are designed and configured to work within these three dimensions that we live in.
Sure.
But above us, and by the way, when we talk about angelic beings or demonic beings, we talk about above and below, right?
Right.
So the idea is that we have these other layers of above and below, but Michael Cremo looks at the Hindu way of looking at life, and he explains it from the Hindu perspective. And by the way, there's some very interesting history going back tens of thousands of years, talking about that they had flying machines back in those days.
The Vimanas, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's saying that what current human beings don't quite understand is that there are these various beings, and so the beings that live in the spiritual realms are configured and designed to live in those realms that are just above the realm that we live in, and there are higher beings above them, and there are lower beings below us. So, but most of us are completely unaware. We're totally immersed in the flesh.
Yeah.
See, in the meat jacket that we wear, and the meat of our brain. We're totally lost, in the things or in the surroundings.
Yeah.
And so in the objective state, you begin to become aware of very strange phenomenon that is almost unexplainable. And what's really weird, to tie this in, is that they're capturing all kinds of strange things now on trail cams. You ever watch these weird stuff that they find on trail cams?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Strange beings, and from zombies to Glimmer Man to werewolves and God knows what. And it's like, okay, is it deep fake or is it real? Werewolves, vampires, are they figments of our imagination, or are they real?
Right.
So the question is, what are we tuned into?
Yeah.
That's the big question. What are we tuning into, or what are we tuning out of?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go back now to when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
17 years old. I'm gonna go surfing one day. I was a pretty well-known surfer. Grew up in Ventura, California. Lived at the beach, from the time I was 12 years old. Always loved surfing. So this day I'm gonna go out surfing, and I'm standing there. I said, I'm gonna put my wetsuit on. I hear this. It wasn't a voice, but it was an intuitive hit. And the intuitive hit said to me, "Don't go surfing today." So where did that come from? So I try to ignore it. And I hear it again. "Don't go surfing today."
Okay.
So then I started getting upset. And I thought to myself, first of all, where's this coming from? And second of all, who the hell do you think you are to tell me what I can and cannot do? Right?
Sure.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Sure enough, I went surfing, and I found out the hard way.
Oh, no.
I almost drowned. That day, I ended up laying in the shallow water. Don't even know how I got there, to be honest with you. And I had punctured a lung. I hit the bottom really hard. And I was out there by myself. I was in the water by myself early in the morning. But what I had started to become super aware of is that I had these forces trying to protect me. Okay. I call them my angels. And the word angel actually only means messenger.
Right.
See, so an angel is not what it appears to be, it's what it does. And I had these angels watching out for me. I think it has to do with the idea that, I fell upon some difficult circumstances as a child, and I think a lot of children do. But somehow there was something a little extra given to me. Now, and I think that this may be true of everybody. I know that Emanuel Swedenborg said that we are born with 2 attending angels and 2 attending demons. That we come into the world and there are 2 forces attending, our life and trying to focus us and help us find our way through this world. Well, I knew that my demons were there because I could see them too. The demons that were there, maybe it was the demons of my own imagination. I don't know. Or maybe these were real manifestations of some dark force that just is in a paper-thin veil between where we are and where their reality is. And by the way, I wrote a book called Not of This World. It's all about that paper-thin veil. That's another story. I was actually, the ambulance came and picked me up. I had a friend who was jogging on the beach that morning when I was laying in that water. And because I was a notorious joker in high school, she thought I was joking around. 15 minutes later, she comes running back the opposite direction on the beach. And she says, "What are you doing?" "I can't breathe." So she called my folks and, the ambulance picked me up and I was in the hospital. All right. Moving forward a couple of years, I had a huge argument with my dad. Huge. It's like, I can't live this way anymore. I'm out of here. And I walked out the front door, T-shirt and jeans and tennis shoes, and I'm walking down my street where I lived, and I got about down to the end of my street. It's about a mile. And all of a sudden there's that intuitive hit again. It seems like a voice, but it's not. It's not an actual voice. It's sort of a knowing. When you get an intuitive hit, you know something instantly, right? The intuitive hit was this: there's nothing out there for you. God, I stood back and I thought, where did that come from? Now, this time when I started looking around, surveying the scenery, and it was a cloudy, foggy day down at the beach, because we lived right near the beach. And I look up and I see these 2 huge angelic faces. Huge. 2. I'm 19 years old. Not even, just turned 19.
Wow.
And I could see it's like a watermark in the clouds. Just 5%. You could see it. I say, "Is this real?" And it said it to me again. "There's nothing out there for you. Go home." Man, I tell you what, because I learned my lesson the first time when I almost drowned.
Yeah.
I turned around, went back home, talked to my dad, told him I was sorry. My life started to take on a different trajectory because it was very selfish. Okay. Before those things happened, I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about anything. That's a typical teenage thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my life started to turn because I realized that I wasn't going to live very long if I didn't change. And this is going back to when I was in the water, 17 years old. I laid there, and before the girl got back to me, I looked up into the heavens and I made a declaration because I knew I was headed for something worse. I said to God, "God, I don't want to live this way anymore." I'd had other terrible accidents. I said I would rather be dead than go on living this way. So that started to rearrange my relationship with the world that I lived in. I surrendered. I just said, "Do what you got to do with me, but I cannot go on living this way. I'd rather be dead." So God, I don't think God wanted me. I don't think God wants anybody
Right.
The spiritual force that designed us, created us, brought us into this world doesn't want anybody dead until they find out what they need to know. Because that then becomes a reward after that. You go to a better potential, let's put it that way.
Sure.
And so that's when I started meditating. I started meditating when I was yet 17 years old. And it was not an Eastern meditation or anything weird. It was in the Bible. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." Mm-hmm. My dad was a teacher. My dad also wrote 21 books, but he also was given a vision of a meditation. It's very much like the Hebrew tefillin. You know what the tefillin is, where they wrap the 10 Commandments around the forehead?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar.
It's a very ancient way of communing with God.
Oh, okay.
It's called the tefillin. And it is a little scroll of the 10 Commandments wrapped around the head with a leather band, and that band goes down the arm, and you hold it in your hand, that leather band, right? And you meditate on God's 10 Commandments. So he made it into an exercise where you learn how to step back from the thinking process and just observe thinking. So, and this, I'm writing another book about this too, about this new information that just came out of the University of Nevada, and because they're trying to figure out what is consciousness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a fundamental question, like the Big Bang and what is consciousness? Where does it come from? Well, it's non-local, and this is what this physicist has discovered. It doesn't exist. The brain is not the source of consciousness. The brain is the receiver of consciousness, right? And so we are the observer of thoughts. We aren't the thinker. Now we can have thoughts, random thoughts, all kinds of thoughts, creative thoughts, destructive thoughts, but where do those thoughts come from? So in my opinion, the brain is like a receiver. It's like a radio. We just pick up what's there. And this is where these layers, these different layers above and below, and we're in the middle. We got above, we have the higher consciousness, we have lower consciousness, and we're just in between. And we have to have a filter. And you know, the military, I remember reading back in 1997, I'll never forget it because it was like, oh, wait a minute. Things are starting to make more sense now. The military wrote a book about psychological warfare, and the headline was, "The Mind Has No Firewall." So if you don't have a firewall, whatever it is that comes in, comes in. There's nothing to keep anything out. So we have to be consciously aware of what it is that's filtering into us from wherever it's coming in. You know, I wake up usually very early in the morning, you know, around 5 o'clock, and usually I will have some kind of an insight. I wake up with an insight. And then I start to work on it. That's why I've written so many books, because I go, wow, that's really interesting. And I start to research it, right? So the idea is that consciousness is non-local. It exists outside the brain, and the brain simply receives the information that's coming in. I mean, SETI, you know, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, looking for signals from alien civilizations.
Right. Now, we
got to start thinking. Go ahead.
Would you say then that our true source is not in these meat suits, but this is a focal point for our consciousness? In other words, just to clarify that, you don't think that we are just these vessels where these other things come into and then we fabricate it into life, but that our true source lies beyond this, and and that's what comes through to us is our true source, whatever that means in its truest definition. And I've always considered that, you know, we are ideas in the mind of God. You know, that's what I've always considered, that we aren't this, but this is where we're focused and we're here to learn. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on that, David?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, when I was producing the Art Bell show, he would have people who experienced what's called walk-ins.
Yes. Yeah.
Spirits that would just walk in and communicate. Don't know if I believe in that, but I don't know that I don't believe in it.
Fair enough.
You know, because what we're willing to allow, right, can manifest. And so the walk-in idea is that if something has the ability to gain access to you and use you, and which many people have said, you know, previous lives, people that believe they've lived in previous lives, could be that those are spirits that are disembodied spirits that are looking for a place to find a home again in a human form. So I do believe that, you know, we are designed and built to have the capacity to do either the greatest of great things or the most horrible of horrible things. And this is what, and so what we are given, and this is what we call choice. We're given a choice as to what it is we want to lean into or lean away from. That's the most fundamental aspect of our humanity, is whether we lean toward doing good and making the world a better place, or being destructive like Stalin and Hitler and Mao.
Right.
You know, and so that's, yeah, we have the capacity, and we've been given the mechanisms, you know. And you know what's so interesting too about this conversation is that there are comparisons that are made between the universe, as what they're being able to see now in terms of the structure of the universe and the energy that exists out there, and the human brain. The mechanisms and the neural pathways and everything that goes on inside that head can be compared to what it looks like out in the universe. So the macro and the micro can never be actually separated because they're part of the same thing.
Yes, I agree, and I've seen depictions showing the pattern of neurons, and then I don't know, a macro map of the known universe, and it looks interchangeable, and that to me is
totally does. You would not know the difference if you weren't told.
Right.
Which is so strange, but it shows that we are the pinnacle of design, since we integrate both the macro and the micro in that sense, that the human being then has the capacity to reflect. And, you know, like one of my favorite movies, obviously, is The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
Because I believe that, you know, anybody that's in the Matrix can be occupied by an agent of the Matrix at any given point in time. This is a Matrix.
Can I fire another question at you, or another observation?
Yeah.
You had made the statement that, and I don't remember who it was attributed to, but that the mind has no firewall.
Yes.
But now this is what occurs to me. But isn't self-awareness and self-enlightenment, maybe does that become our firewall then? Because then we've developed who we are, and we have a filter of parameters that, you know, just random subconscious, inclusions and stuff. We're able to fend them off because we have an identity of self, or an understanding of self, and that by, you know, enlightening ourselves or coming to a higher sense of awareness, could that then be a firewall that we develop over time?
1,000%.
Okay.
It's a great way. What you just said was perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so the idea is that because we have been given the capacity to choose either one thing or another, one attitude or another, one belief or another, if you don't choose, then there are choices that are made for you.
Right. Yeah.
And this is where mind control comes in. And this is why I thought it was so interesting that the military observed that the mind has no firewall, and therefore psychotronic weapons and psychological warfare is so effective. I mean, do you remember during Desert Storm that they were able to focus a radio wave into the Republican Guard? And this radio wave disrupted their feeling about things so badly that thousands upon thousands of them, they didn't know why they had this feeling of foreboding, right? Yeah. But thousands of them surrendered without a fight.
Yeah.
This was psychological warfare.
Sure.
But psychological warfare is nothing new. As a matter of fact, from my point of view, psychological warfare was the first thing that happened to human beings when they encountered the dark side. Don't believe what God said. He doesn't want you to know what he knows.
Yeah.
That fruit, whatever it is he told you not to eat, that'll open your eyes. You'll see everything as it really is. Psychological warfare by a creature, whatever it was, if it was a reptilian, and by the way, that's my new book. My new book is Life Before Humans. What was here before we got here?
Right.
Because we haven't been here forever.
Right.
Dinosaurs, manifestations of earth spirits. The Native American Indians talk about earth spirits and spirit guides. I mean, these are things that we know of from almost every culture. Spirit guides, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are those things? Where have they? And even ET, extraterrestrials or aliens. There are many scientists that say the distance in between galaxies and between potential habitable planets is too far. 4 light years takes 50,000 human years to get here.
Right.
So maybe these things have been here since the very beginning. And maybe they have developed their own technologies.
Right.
And maybe they have access to other dimensions. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute because I was in one of those dimensions for 3 days.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything weird, but maybe those things have been here all along. Maybe this planet was a perfect incubator for spiritual forces, both good and evil, right?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So yes, see, if you're not making your own choices, then choices are being made for you.
One
And
other
so-
quick question, if you don't mind. You had mentioned the philosophy behind there being 2 angels and 2 demons that are given to each of us. Do you think that diminutive creature could have been yours manifesting to you, or one of yours?
Elaborate a little bit.
Well, you were on the railroad tracks. You saw that little creature came up, and it kind of taunted you and said, "I've been in hell, and I can't wait to pee on your grave," and stuff. And,
Yeah.
It sounded like a very familiar statement for something random to make. Like, it knows you, it knows all about you, and it's making
Right.
itself known to you. And so
Yeah.
I was wondering, I wonder if that could be.
I love this question.
Okay.
I love this question because there's a correlation to another part of the story.
Oh,
And that is that as soon as that happened to me, I screamed at my family, who was maybe, I'm going to say, 10 yards ahead of me.
uh-huh.
I said, does anybody see that? Did anybody see that? Nobody saw it, right?
Oh, sure.
So I called my friend Mancow. You know who Mancow is?
I know the name. I don't remember.
Chicago.
Right.
Chicago radio.
Yeah,
number
yeah.
one radio.
Yeah.
I used to produce his radio show. So he and I became very good friends. And I actually produced a Fox News special for him.
Oh, cool.
So we became very close. I called Mancow and I said, Mancow, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And I told him the story. And I said, that was awesome. And you know why? Because I came to a conclusion that I must be doing something right for
Oh,
this
yeah.
thing to come up to me and try to put the kibosh on me.
Yeah.
Try to, put the fear of the dark side in me. And I thought it was so cool.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Because I must be doing something right to put me on that radar
Yeah.
of that thing. Because there are things that go bump in the night.
Oh, for sure.
See?
Yeah.
And the question is, why are they there? Well, yes, by being aware, they become aware of you. You become aware of them. They become aware of you. And now you have the standoff.
Yeah.
Because you could see it. Now, a couple of other significant things happened to me. I started getting there and I got distracted by my own stories. When I was 13 years old, this was the defining moment of my life, because this coming from the 10, 11, 12 years old, having these experiences and not understanding what was going on, seeing into that child's home life and saying, no, don't go there. And so I listened to that. And then the creature that attacked me through my window, it's like, there's something out there. It's trying to get you. So I resisted that. I didn't give into it. See, and here's the thing about another thing that I want to just touch on is that there are determination moments.
Yeah.
There are polarity moments. There are trajectory moments to where, if you give into fear, fear gets into you,
Yeah.
right? If you resist fear, then fear is not attracted to you as much as it is repelled by you. See,
Oh, good
forces
point.
of attraction and
Yeah.
revulsion. So
Like magnetism. Yeah.
exactly. And so 13 years old, I go to sleep one night. I wake up the next morning and I'm like a balloon. And this is what my book, Pay Attention to Your Intuition, is all about.
Okay.
Because it really, my real story starts here. I'm up in the corner of my room watching myself sleep I wake up. I'm not aware that my soul has lifted out of my body. I just get up, I go about my daily routine, I go have my breakfast, I talk to my mom, but I'm watching like a balloon, like a helium balloon tied to my wrist. It's just everywhere I go, there I am, following. But I'm outside my body. My conscious awareness is not in my body. It's outside my body and about 6 to 8 feet above, just being towed around.
Wow.
Okay. First day, it's very weird, right? I didn't have any sensation of anything. And this is what I'm talking about in my book, is that I was in this other dimension, this realm, right?
Yeah.
That was, it is a part of the world that we live in, but it's not something we are fully aware of. This I'm going to call it the fourth dimension. Okay, so we're stuck in this three-dimensional world of, height, width, and breadth, and whatever it is. I'm up here in this other dimension, and I'm free-floating. Me, my consciousness, nothing more than my consciousness. I knew that it was me. Mm-hmm. I knew that this was my consciousness. I knew that that was me down there walking around doing the things that I do as a 13-year-old kid, going to school, sitting in my class, watching everything, just observing everything. Go home in the evening, have dinner, go to sleep, and there I am up in the ceiling watching myself sleep all night. No sense of time, by the way.
Sure.
But a sense of the fact that the human experiences, those days were passing. Mm-hmm. So this is the first day. I'm trying to process this from a conscious point of view. Next day, the same thing happens. And it's sort of at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
Because I was aware of the human days that were passing. No sense of time, but watching the events of the day unfold. Again, go to sleep. Second day, watching from the ceiling of my room, watching myself sleep. Wake up the next morning. Third day, same exact thing. And now I'm starting to adjust to it. It's like, okay, mm-hmm. I'm gonna continue to exist without me being stuck in here in this brain.
Right.
All right, and I go through all these motions of the third day, and then at the end of the third day, I go to sleep, and then the next morning I wake up and I'm back in my body.
Wow. So
I spent 3 days outside my consciousness, outside of myself, in that ether, and that's what I'm calling the fourth dimension.
Right.
The ether, because you've got to be able to float on something. You've got to be able to exist in that space somehow, right?
Right.
Okay.
Did you have the feeling that, like, you were consciously doing your day as well, but was it like a fragmentation of your awareness, where that you were more now super focused in this other part of you than the mobile day-to-day part, but you knew that was still you? Or was it like someone else was driving and you're watching them drive your car?
No, I knew it was me.
Okay.
I knew it was me.
Okay.
I 100% knew it was me.
Fascinating. Wow.
I heard myself communicating and talking to people. I saw myself interacting with people. Huh. In other words, if you were just like a fly on the wall, let's say you were, to compare it to today, if you had a webcam and you just put that webcam above somebody and just watched everything that they did.
Right.
And so there was, like I said, there was no feeling involved. There's no sensation whatsoever. But it was a pure observational condition. That's all I did, was observe everything. I observed everything about myself, mm-hmm. mainly, and the way that I was living that life. And everything, every little thing, the way I walked, the way I talked, the things I said, the people I said it to, mm-hmm. my parents, I saw everything.
Wow.
So then when I came back into my body, the main takeaway for me was that I'm not my body.
Yeah.
This is my vehicle.
Right.
This is how I get from point A to point B.
Right.
there's something more going on here. And again, you're 13 years old. What do you know when you're 13 years old?
Well, you think you know everything, but the truth is,
You know what? I have to admit, I'm one of those people who did not know, and I was okay with it.
yeah. Well, good for you.
As a matter of fact, I kind of liked not knowing when I was young better than knowing, because I have a brother that's 4 years younger than me, and he was a know-it-all. He was a knowledge-based person.
Okay.
He knew everything. He made me look stupid
Yeah.
because I didn't care. It wasn't my focus. See,
Right.
my focus was just to get up and make it through one day. That's it. That's all I cared about. I didn't like school. I felt that the clock was like a jailer, sitting there in the public school,
Yeah.
sitting there all day long, watching the clock tick, tick.
Yep. I can
tick.
relate. Yeah.
Super conscious of time passing. Felt like an hour went by with every second. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A second was an hour long. It was weird. I never felt that I belonged in this world. I felt like I was a different kind of cat, and I just didn't know why I didn't fit. And, I really wasn't able to develop like what you would call normal relationships with people
Yeah.
because I didn't feel like they understood me. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have that experience, by the way.
I do too. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you see, I do believe that we have two lives. I think we all have actually two lives that we live. Mm-hmm. The one that we understand and the one we don't. See, the one that we think is who we are and what we do, and then the other part of us that says that's not it. There's another part of us that says there's more to life than this. And from that point on, there was this incredible paradigm shift for me because I became more aware of my relationships with people and my parents and the world. Now, as I got older, I started to have some very interesting abilities. One of those was dream interpretation.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a visual thinker. That's how my brain doesn't work in terms of abstracts. I can't do abstract thinking at all. That's why I didn't like school, because my brain wasn't wired for it.
Right.
And so when I was about 15 years old, I remember my sister saying, I had a really weird dream. I said, well, what was your dream? And then she told me, and I explained it to her perfectly. She goes, how do you know this? And so I started finding out that I had this capacity to look at the images that somebody was sharing with me, and it was painting a picture. It was almost like a movie, like watching a movie. And so that ability was uncanny. As a matter of fact, I used to be the number one dream expert on Coast to Coast with George Norrie.
Oh, okay.
And he said to me, out of the 5,000 people that I've interviewed, you're the only one that knows what's going on in the dream state. Mm-hmm. So that ability, I believe, was an acquired level of consciousness that I picked up when I was in that 3-day vacation, I guess you could say, from me.
Yeah, I think that's powerful though, because and it's very similar to like in near-death experiences. A lot of times people come back with a heightened ability, and
Right.
heightened awareness and such, and they'll live the rest of their life with this knowledge, and new doors have opened for them, and it's really profound. So
Yeah.
I think it's a strong similarity to that, right?
Yeah, well, I do believe that there is, like, let's say in the ether, if the ether had a property that we could describe as a human being, that gets on you when you're there. Oh. Something of the properties of that dimension permeate you.
Oh.
And it's a totally objective space. In other words, it is not a subjective space at all. In this body, in this world that we live in, we are in a subjective state. So, to me, it's absurd when people say we live in a hologram or we live in a holographic universe. It's insane, because when a person gets in when a soldier has his legs blown off, that's real. That's not a hologram. That's not a virtual reality. That's an actual reality. This is a very subjective world that we live in. But when you are free from the subjective world and you're in the objective world, that has properties, and whatever's involved in those properties, there's a space. If you take a saltwater fish and you try to make it live in fresh water, it'll kill it.
Yes.
It can't adapt like that. But so these properties, these different properties, they do affect us in certain ways. And I believe the objective space in the fourth dimension it permeates you. As long as you're there, you get permeated by it. And then when you come back into yourself, you bring that back with you. Now that can be a curse, and it can be a blessing, because when you become aware, remember the movie The Sixth Sense?
Oh, sure. Yep.
When the kid could see the dead people.
Yep.
Imagine being able to see dead people. I mean, hello. It's like
That's really something.
It's not something you would wish on your worst enemy, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at it, step back and take a 10,000-foot view of these moments in time where you have these amazing paranormal experiences.
Yeah.
But like with the demon that I faced when I was walking with my little boy, he became aware of me, and from a long distance away.
Yeah.
Because he was. I mean, I know how far it was. It was 1,000 yards away that this little man walked across these railroad tracks. Now, if in fact it was a manifestation of a demonic presence in a human being, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But those people roam around all day long, every day, looking for somebody to get to.
Yes.
Because that's their job.
Yeah.
They're change agents.
Yeah.
Just as we are, just as Jesus was a change agent. He was the change agent. And when he communicated and people started to get what he was doing, they became change agents.
Right.
See what I'm saying? And so the dark side and the light side both have change agents constantly at war with each other. It's a psycho-spiritual war is what we're dealing with.
Very interesting. Yeah. And when you were talking about being in that state and like the ether and what occurred to me, and again, it's subjective, but I always think in terms of frequency, that there's some frequencies we're just not aware of, and this is a lot of this other stuff that exists around us. And if we suddenly had perfect vision, we'd probably be pooping ourselves, because we'd realize we're swimming in a world of spirit and of consciousnesses and intelligences. But I wonder if being in that state maybe changed your frequency or elevated it. And, that was very transformative then, because even though you came back into your normal experience, you came back with that change. So, yeah, in either case, it's I guess probably semantics, but it is interesting to ponder.
Well,
isn't it?
yeah, and there's another way we can look at it too, and I think that's absolutely correct the way you described it. But, there are pollutants that can kill us.
Yeah.
But what if there are purifications that can occur to us also?
Sure.
And there in the scripture it says, if the eye be single, the whole body will be filled with light. So when I talk about meditation, I'm talking about the eye be single meditation. When you look out through the middle of your forehead and you stimulate the pineal gland, which is at the core, the center of your brain,
Right.
that pineal gland is the master gland of the body. And by the way, if you know what the eye of, I believe it's the eye of Isis, the Egyptian symbol for the eye of Horus, I think it is.
Yep, it's Horus.
Yeah,
Yep.
the eye of Horus. The pineal gland almost perfectly resembles that image.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So what are we doing here? What are we stimulating? What part of our being are we stimulating? Are we sexually fixated, as many people are? Or are we spiritually fixated? And you look at the children of Fatima, and they're looking up into the sky, and they're moving around, and how do they do that? Well, where are they focused? Where your mind goes, your energy flows.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Very profound. Wow.
So let me now fast forward to another episode of my life, because
Sure.
I believe that experience at the age of 13 prepared me to have more powerful visions as I got older, and I did. And so I'm going to say this was, I was about 35 years old. And I wake up one night from a terrible, terrible nightmare. And in the nightmare, I saw myself run over and kill my 5-year-old son with my own car.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was, if there was a movie that you were watching about this happening to you, you would be able to see every detail from every angle. And I saw it. I saw this thing happen, and it unfolded toward my son. I pulled up on a hill, my car. I had a big 2-door Cadillac at the time, and I forgot to put my car in park. Oh. And so as I was getting out to say hello to some family members, the car started to roll back, and it rolled back in a horseshoe shape. Oh. It rolled backward because the wheels turned, and it was on this very steep driveway. And my son was getting out of the back seat of the car, and he got run over. Oh, and so I woke up crying and in agony from this dream. It was so real to me.
Yeah.
3 days later, 3 human days later, this exact scenario unfolded in real life. Thus, the title of my book, Pay Attention to Your Intuition. And I did. See, when I had that dream, and I used to have very, very strong dreams. I never had that many dreams, but the dreams that I had were so powerful. And to me, that one was just like devastating. And I couldn't even imagine my life, after that.
Yeah.
Right? So I paid attention to that, and I gave it the gravity of being so close to real that it seemed like it was actual, right?
Yeah.
But I was able to grab him as he got out of the back seat and pull him into me.
Oh, God.
And he didn't get run over.
Thank God. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was waiting for how that ended because my heart was breaking.
That's how it happened. I knew what was happening. Oh. I saw it unfolding. And instinctively, I just reached my hand around and grabbed him, and he was fine.
Oh, thank God. Wow.
But if I didn't see that happening, if I didn't have the premonition of it, then who knows how it would have ended up. I think he would have gotten run over.
Yeah.
So, see, the idea is that when your consciousness is awakened, when you're intuitively awakened, now you have a choice whether or not you're going to listen and pay attention. Yeah. And if you don't, and how many times have people said to themselves, oh my God, I wish I would have listened to myself.
Yes.
Right? How many times?
Oh, yeah.
I could give you an example. I was going to buy a house, and I could afford it at the time. It was a nice house, being brand new built, bigger than the one I live in. And I kept going and walking over down the street from where I currently live, but somebody kept saying to me, no. Again, this is like those angelic faces I saw saying, there's nothing out there for you. Okay, right. I listened to that. But there was just this sense like, no, this isn't right for you, right? And so when it came time, I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to buy that house. And then 6 months later, there was the crash of 2008 or 9. Yeah, 8. I would have lost that house.
Oh, phew.
Yeah. So again, how it works is you incline toward it or away from it. You incline toward the warning or away from it. It's you either accept it and embrace it. You either pay attention to what's going on. Because see, we aren't just this piece of meat.
Right.
We are a very, very highly sophisticated receiver of information. When a person goes into a coma, unless of course they're having like a continuous out-of-body experience, they don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are having near-death experiences that are on the operating table and are watching the surgeons cut away at them. Yeah. And they know exactly what the instruments are and everything else. Yep. And there's one I remember, and I've been researching this pretty much my whole life, for about the last 40 years. There's one where a patient went out of their body as they were being operated on, went out to the ledge of the hospital, and there was a tennis shoe out there outside the window. And then when they woke up after they recovered from the surgery, they said, there's a tennis shoe outside the ledge out there. No, that is not impossible. It's like, yeah. And somebody went and checked, and sure enough, there was a tennis shoe there.
I've heard that one.
And the patient talked about the machine, the kind of saw that was being used to open their skull or whatever it was. Listen, the consciousness is what defines us as human beings. Otherwise, we just have this meat body. Yeah. Like any other animal in the world. Yes, it's more sophisticated, but you know what? Dogs dream. Dogs have active brains. And my dog, I have a 70-pound Doberman. He barks and cries in his sleep all the time. It's like, what is he thinking? Well, he had an experience that day. Mm-hmm. He's reacting to that. It's Memorex. He's reacting again to that experience. So we have the ability to have a higher sense of things. Now the question is, we can discern what it is that's going on. An animal, not necessarily, but you know what? Animals know when earthquakes are going to happen.
Yes, they do. Yep.
They have these finely tuned senses to the world, but we are not the same. Because we're part earth and we're part heaven or hell, depending upon how you look at it.
Fair enough. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I know you and I could talk for weeks and never run out of material. And I don't know if we covered near what you want to today, but I've got to tell you, it's been incredible. This is a fascinating discussion, and I'm just thrilled that you chose to come here and be a part of it. I hope that you'll come back. Because we've got to have several more discussions, you and I.
Now, if people want to find more about me, I have a website that's chocked full, and my website is www.escapeyourmindsprison.com.
Perfect.
Because we live in a mind prison.
Yeah.
And this is why when your mind is in prison, you don't need bars.
Right.
Your mind is locked up.
Yeah.
So what I have discovered in my lifetime and the things I've witnessed, I told you my dad was an exorcist. I've seen these things. I've seen dozens of exorcisms.
Wow.
I have lived in a metaphysical world all my life, and it's affected me. And my hope is that I can awaken people. If I just awaken one person every time I have a conversation, my duty is done. I'm happy.
Right. Well, you've definitely, I'm sure, awakened a bunch of us, and you brought some great ideas to the table too, which I think is a big part of this. And that's why I love these discussions, is because, we're all on this journey, whether you realize it or not. It's all incumbent, I think, to the human condition and our human experience here in this world. But you've been brilliant, and
I want to leave you with one final thought for everybody.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
This is why it's important to think about my presentation. And that is because whatever it is the soul is, it is inextinguishable. Mm-hmm. It is a part of something that lasts forever. So it's very important to be on the right side of things. God forbid your time comes. Nobody knows when their time is.
Right.
That is the beginning of your forever. So I'd like to introduce you to the ideas that I've talked about. And I have a free meditation that people can do on my website at escapeyourmindsprison.com. And they can find out all about my books and my podcast. I mean, it's all up there. My interview with Sean Hannity is there. My interview with all these people who I've talked to about this very same thing. Some people, though, are more open to the ideas that I have than others.
Sure.
So, and this is why I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure, David. And I really do anxiously await our next conversation.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to get that scheduled. Now, you said your website and your books are available on the website
on
as
Amazon.
well?
If anybody wants to find anything that I've written, just books by David Masters on Amazon Kindle.
Perfect. Well, and your podcast is hosted where?
My podcast is hosted up on Ground Zero Radio.
Okay.
But if you just type in, it's everywhere. It's all in every single social media on whatever all these social media
and the platforms
posting places are. Yeah. It's everywhere. It's Spooky Action at a Distance with David Masters.
Excellent, brother. Well,
and also for philosophical conversations like you and I are having.
Yes.
It is Disrupt the Drift with Briant Baptiste.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
There's 150 shows up there.
Oh.
And on YouTube as well.
Excellent, brother. Well, this has been a rare pleasure. And yes, we will be doing more of this with you, sir. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Looking forward to coming back as soon as possible.
Amen. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. Y'all take care, and remember, we love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.